All right, we have the AZ1 back. We're going to be doing all of the stuff that I saw last time. We're going to be doing the timing belt and replacing all the stuff that was in there. There's going to be some gaskets that we're replacing as well. We have the wheel bearings. We're going to be checking the AC. I did fill it, but it leaked out, so we're going to see if any of the dye I put in showed up anywhere around it. I do have the hood latch cable. It is a little different, but I'll show you the differences later. We do have timing belt, water pump, all of the little gaskets. And then our little valve cover gaskets. Look at that. It's so cute. This is going to be as much of a learning experience for you as it is for me. There's not a whole lot of stuff out there for AZ1s. So I'm just going to be figuring out as I go along. And it's probably going to be take apart more just to make it easier because there is a lot in here. What does it take? All right. Well, there we go. All right. In the process of taking all of this out, I have this little PCV box thing out, which is on top of the rearward valve cover. I have taken off some of the hoses and stuff. This is the little blow-off valve, which I think is aftermarket. This doesn't look like a OEM style blow-off valve, but it's got the little bracket and stuff. I do have the distributor off. I'm going to take off the little plate that the distributor goes onto. And I'm going to do my best to not take the intake manifold off because I don't want to. But I'm going to take off some of the hoses back here for the blow-off valve so I can get that out. And then we're going to start taking off the timing cover stuff along with the valve cover stuff. Blow-off valve came out. It was not easy at all. I had to spray PB blaster and everything in there with screwdriver stuff. And then I took off the spark plug wire cover and the spark plug wires. At this point, I just got to take off the timing belt because there's bolts on the inside that go into the valve covers. So I still can't take the valve covers off. I came down here and I was like, I'm going to take off the crank pulley and the timing belt stuff and get to that point so I can take the covers off. That's the bottom of the crank pulley. Yeah, I think we're going to have to drop the engine. I did try. I did look at it and everything, but I can't get to any of the bolts or see any of the lines or any of the things going on with the timing belt. It's just going to be easier to drop this. I'm in the process. I've taken off the struts in the back, taken off the calipers. I'm going to disconnect the e-brake from the little bits that are here, draining the coolant. Got to take the exhaust off. I'm hoping that there's a disconnect for the wiring harness, but there might not be. I might just have to unplug everything. No, we're not cutting it. We're not doing that. We're going to do it properly. But yeah, so apparently on this, it is far easier to drop the engine to do the valve covers than to do it in the engine bay. I guess it's a good thing that they didn't make many of these cars. We got the engine out and it wasn't terrible. There are wiring connections. This one I had to do a little one to get the battery cable with it. And looking at this, doing all of this inside the car would be very difficult. So in the scheme of things, if you have to do valve cover gaskets on your AZ1, just pull the engine. It's going to be so much easier. And there's at the end of the video, when we go to put this back up, I'll show you what you can leave on because I took off a bunch of stuff trying to do it in there. But a lot of that stuff I can just leave on and then shove it back up in the car. We're gonna do the timing belt stuff right now. You can, I think I was talking about it, but you can see the motor mount. So this comes around the front. These are the 3 bolts. And in the car, the mount that this slides into literally covers it. So it can't come up. It has to go down to come out. Another reason why I kind of came to the consensus that we're pulling the engine out. Ooh, pro tip. when you're doing stuff like this with the multiple lines on one side and you want to remember where they go, you take off the hoses in different spots. So like this side, I took off the hose closest to the engine and I took off the hose closest to here. So I can't screw them up. So we've got what looks like the marks right here for timing, but that's pointing down. So I'm gonna spin it over. Oh, there's another mark. Oh, that might be it then. What's that other mark then? Because this is now pointing up and we've got a little notch pointing at 0. We're gonna find out when we take this off. Well, there's another sign that this isn't happening inside the car. This entire piece is 1. Someone has done timing on this before, which is a good sign because technically you're supposed to do it every 5 or 6 years, regardless of mileage. All right, so it was upside down, and I'm not just going off of the white paint marks that someone did. Whenever they do timing, they almost never have it in the center of two of the sprockets when they're an odd number. They always have it lined up with one of the sprockets. I'm going to show you guys how to hold the cam gear and remove it. We didn't record the first one because Steve didn't believe me that it was going to work. So you're going to use the timing belt, wrap it around the cam gear, and then you don't want to pull on it too tight because the cam gear will move, but it'll keep it from moving too far, and hold the cam gear where you want it. And then you can reset it. All right, now we can try to take off the valve covers, but I would like to point out one thing, which is another thing that would make this a nightmare to do inside the car, is they have breathers that go in between the valve covers. So taking those off and putting them on and all that other stuff would be very interesting. The other thing that I'm curious on this is the camshaft might be inside the valve covers. Because of how this looks, I'm going to remove these outside in, just like you would if you were taking a cam out, because I believe now that these are not valve covers, these are cam holders, which I'm going to try to pull both of them out at the same time because of these little breathers that are there. If I am correct, I should just be able to pick this up. They are the cam holders. This is how you would take the cam out and it would pull backwards. But you can't do that in the engine because then you have all the pressure from the valves pushing against it. This is interesting. This is very interesting. I should be able to put that cap back on and this won't slide out, because this one will slide backwards, but this one doesn't because we have the cap on. Before I take that off, I'm going to make sure that we have the gasket for that, but I'm pretty sure I got it. I was going to do a valve adjustment on it, but these are hydraulic. There is no adjustment. So the only thing that we can do to try and help any noise in the future would be taking all of these little lifters out and putting them in a bucket of oil so that they can soak, and you put them back with, hopefully, full of oil. You can actually see the bubbles coming up, which means they're filling. Let's see how these wheel bearings come out. I do have a press kit. I can try an on-car wheel bearing press kit, but it's got the wheel bearing in the front and the wheel bearing in the back, the little ones. But this hub is pressed into them, so that's why we can't pull this off, which is interesting because you can't do the rotor without doing the wheel bearings, apparently. There we go. All right, let's push these things out. Fun fact, there's only 2 knuckles for this car, because if you look, this is the front one, that's the rear one that we're going to do a wheel bearing on, and if we walked over to the other side, it would be identical. This is just flipped. Well, I took the knuckle off and walked over to the press, and I couldn't figure out how to not hurt the rotor while using the press to take it apart. Putting it back together, that should be really easy. However, taking it apart, I can't really figure that out right now. So we put it back on, and I'm going to slide hammer it out because it's the only other way I can think of to get this thing out. There we go. All right. Well, the strut's in the way for us to try to use this, so I have to take it off. So I'm just going to go over to the press. Yeah, I don't know about that. I was trying to figure out how to take this apart, and I decided to talk with some of my guys here, and I was just like, I don't know how to do this. And one of them went, look up how to do a motorcycle wheel bearing. Suzuki makes motorcycles. And I was like, you know what? Let me look. Lo and behold, motorcycles use 2 wheel bearings with a little thing in the center. Sometimes they have a little thing in the center, sometimes they don't, but they have 2 wheel bearings. And yeah, inside, in here, there is a lip. So you're not going to press one bearing out and so on and so forth from any side. In the middle of them is this sleeve, right? That sleeve is smaller than the hole in here, which makes sense because when you take this out or when you take out the spindle or axle in the center, you put something against that sleeve and push it one direction. And then what I did was I had the knuckle on the ground like this. I had it pushed to one direction, grabbed my trusty hammer and flathead, and whack! Tilt it the other way, push it back down, whack! And I did that until it came out. And so now this one, I'm going to go over to the press and just push it out nicely. And then when I put them in, I'll use the press to push them in nicely. But to get them out, hammer and screwdriver, or hammer and chisel, or whatever the hell you want to use. But you have to go, like if it's facing this way, you would have to do the other side. You can't do the side that is facing up. Now it's all pressed together. We did slide our spindle in, so I'm gonna tap the dust shield down. And then we're going to put this back on the car, and then we're gonna tighten down the spindle nut, which will pull everything together. Recheck the torque on these to make sure they're all good. Put the brakes back on, and that is the wheel bearing. A little bit more complicated, but once I figured it out, I think the rear one, when I do the rear one, should be much easier. The lifters have been soaking for quite a while, so we're gonna plop them in their home. There go. I'm gonna go grab the rockers and then clean it back up, and we'll put the new gaskets in. Tis the easiest time to do the cam seals because everything's out of the way. What we're going to do with this is I'm going to put a light bead of Honda Bond around it. Just very light, because one, I want it to seal. And two, even though these are OEM Suzuki or Mazda, whatever, fucking Mazda AutoZam stuff, but they're OEM parts, they're not 100% exact. Come on, buddy. I have the center 8 all the way down now. So we'll snug up the other ones and then torque these. So I normally don't like putting Honda Bond or any kind of RTV under gaskets, but these Japanese cars have proven that if I don't, they're probably going to leak. The other thing too is I don't like putting this on there because it's extra cleanup for whoever has to be in here next time. But this car, I don't think we've shown you guys, but I have been hating life cleaning up all these old paper gaskets. I will say that after doing the 2 gaskets on the cam cap valve cover thingies with razor blades and, you know, taking my time to make sure I don't gouge anything on the block, I was like, all right, I'm gonna do something else. And one of my guys handed me a carbide scraper, which I will say is absolutely amazing. I don't know if I would recommend it on aluminum. You have to be really careful with aluminum, but on cast iron, flawless. Made short work of that, but cleaning up this takes a lot less time than having to buy a special tool or sitting there with a razor blade for an hour. That was definitely leaking. It was like effortless to take out. So in here is our hood latch. And all hood latches are really similar, if not the exact same. So this hood latch has an access panel. I'm going to take it out so I can show you what it is. What happened with this one was the cable that pulls on it
was broken. So we had to open it, which is very difficult when it's in the car. So if you have a bad hood latch or a bad cable, something is keeping the hood from opening in your car, hopefully this will help. Now, with this one or any latch, there's always this piece here, okay, where I have the wire tied to. With this, you can pull it, and that's what opens it. Let me get a screwdriver, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. This is the piece that keeps your hood from flying up or you move once it's popped to get it open. This is your actual latch. So with this pulled off to the side, we can put a screwdriver in here and push the screwdriver down. So now this latch is locked, and behind this spring right in there, that's where it's locked. So those are pulled against it. This spring is pulling. That little bump down there slides along this and then pops in. Now, every one of them is like this. You'll have to come from underneath, from the side. Some cars I've had to take the bumpers off. I have had to unbolt other things. There's a lot of stuff that you have to unbolt. But once you get to it, there's going to be where the cable goes into or an actuator if your car is controlled by an electric actuator. So all you have to do is hook something up. Now, obviously, this one will pull and do that. But in here, if you can get anything in there to pry onto it, let's see what we got here. I'm trying to show you from the way, because obviously I can just push this piece and there it goes. This is the thing that it rides on that I'm talking about, where it falls in there and then locks. So once we have that pulled in any way, shape, or form, putting a hook in there, a little pick, a flathead from the other direction, any of that stuff will get you to open this. So after you've done that, you can do my little wire trick if you want, which you just do a decent knot for the wire trick, route it to where it's tucked away somewhere that it's not going to flop away. Actually, funny enough, I do know that Porsches have a wire routed somewhere because they're on an actuator for this, not a actual pull cable. But we're going to take this wire off because I do have a new hood latch cable, so we don't need this anymore. I would say something like the wire is really good for this project if you're going to not fix it correctly at this time, because it takes a lot to yank this wire, where if you do like a zip tie or any other stuff, it's really easy for the plastic to break. This is a Mazda, it's Mazda Autozam Mazdaspeed AZ1. It's a long name for a car. And getting the hood cables for them, there weren't any in stock wherever I could find them, and they, these are rare cars, they didn't make many of them, so on and so forth. I looked at a bunch of stuff, and this is actually a cable for a Miata. So before we put this all together and we say it's good, I'm going to make sure this works and that actuates it properly before we do any of that. We have the ball that goes in here and pulls on that. And so you want it to slot into here. That's where this plastic piece goes. So we just snake it in there, bring it up through, and then slot this into our little piece. So now the way to make sure this works is we actually set this. And then we're going to grab our latch and make sure when you pull this, it opens. So that just tells us that once this is together, it will work. I'm going to do it a few more times just to make sure that it's not a one-time fluke. In this part, this is another way that you can unlock a broken latch if you think the cable is broken somewhere. The key is knowing where the cable is routed, because if you know where the cable is routed, then you can find it. And I haven't had to do it in the past, but you can cut the cable and then pull the cable somewhere else, because I've had where cables are like stuck at the end where the hood latch is, so that it won't, like when you pull the latch, it doesn't move inside because it's stuck inside. But if you cut further down, now it's free to move and you can get it all unstuck.
So this is the actual hole for the cable to come through. So we're gonna route it through from inside. That way, oh, it's raining pretty good here. That way it's a smaller side to poke through there instead of the giant one on the other side. But it snakes around here and then back in through back here. And so if this happened again, or we had any kind of hood latch sticking, I would look underneath the car for that cable so I could cut it and hopefully just pull the cable inside and get it open. Because really, once it's open, you can leave it open until you fix it, or you can do the wire fix or something like that to allow you to open it for now and then fix it, tomorrow, because tomorrow never comes. We're gonna poke this through the hole as I'm attacked by it. The only thing that was different looking than this, or than the original one, is that this was too long. Which only means that we might just get creative with how it's routed. As for the routing of this, because it is much longer, we're going to go to the opposite direction, because the original one came around here and then went in. So this one's just going to kind of do a serpentine pattern through here. We're going to zip tie it, because, no project is complete without some zip ties thrown in there. The next test is going to be bolting this together, closing the hood, and hoping it opens again. We've got the moment of truth. Going to see if it closes and stays closed. That's good. The next one. Ha! All right. Well, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. Check out our other videos. We'll see you next time.